Hello Region Synergy, and thank you for having me along at your regional training meeting. So I've been invited along by Kirsty to come and have a bit of a talk with you today, and I wanted to just give you a little bit of a boost and some inspiration and a few ideas to really get you working through the challenging times that we're having at the moment, not just with COVID-19 and the challenges we're facing with the changes in the pace and the rhythm and the shape of our life, but also with what's happening within the body shop at home. Sometimes we see and feel those bumps in the road and we're challenged by those and it affects our journey. But what we have to remember is that sometimes these obstacles are part of our journey and it wouldn't be the same without them. So I wanted to make a start by telling you a little story. So in the 17th century, you might have heard of this if you did history at school. But in the 17th century, there was what is known as the bubonic plague, or the Black Plague of London, as it was known. And this plague struck down about 35,000 people over time. And it's thought, if you read the history books, that this bubonic plague came from China, or from Asia at least anyway. And it seemed that as the years went on, the only thing that was comparable to that were massive flu epidemics. And probably pandemics that we're looking at today and dealing with COVID. So what I wanted you to think about was during the 17th century, when this bubonic plague was happening, there was a lot of closures like there are now. People were confined to their houses, and if there was the plague in somebody's house, there was a red cross painted on their front door and a wreath left outside and a message painted on the door, blessed be within. It was all taken very, very seriously in this lockdown. It was almost like a shaming game to get people to stay within their homes. Very different to what Boris insists we do these days, I know. But during that lockdown, one of the things that suffered was the arts, and the theatres closed down. Now this is where it gets interesting, because a certain theatre got closed down during this time, and there was a young jobbing actor who worked in one of the theatres, and he was an actor who was doing a bit of writing. So he got laid off and confined to his home. So during this period of being at home, he got his little notebook out, or his, I don't know, maybe a blackboard or maybe a slate and a piece of chalk or something, and he started to write, and the creativity flowed out of him because he had time and space to sit and think about things. And he wrote some amazing pieces of work. He wrote Henry VI, and he wrote a play called Richard III. Have you guessed who he is? That's right, he's William Shakespeare. So it was William Shakespeare, the actor, who then turned himself into an amazing playwright who wrote 30 odd plays and hundreds of sonnets simply because of the plague. Because he was locked down at home, he put his hand to something else. And I want you to really think about that when you're thinking about how the lockdown is affecting your work at the moment. Remember William Shakespeare, that playwright, very famous playwright, who you probably learnt about at school as well, like I did. And it was his creativity was all instigated by that lockdown of the bubonic plague in the 17th century. So the next thing I'm going to ask you to have a think about is, what would the world be like today if John Lennon had never picked up a guitar? It'd be very different, wouldn't it? What would have happened if Picasso had never picked up a paintbrush? What would the world be like then? You know, you have to think about these things, that when you're teetering on the edge of making massive steps in your journey with the body shop at home, have a think about, am I going to change the world? Well, you might not be John Lennon and you might not be Picasso the artist, but do you know what? You can be a star in your very own community. You can certainly be a star in your very own body shop at home team. So have a little think about that. The obstacles are part of your journey, but when you think about obstacles, remember that fortune favours the brave. And what I mean by that is that you're never going to get good fortune in your life and have a plethora of successes unless you're actually brave and you step out there and you make some changes. I want you to think about being your own best friend. Don't criticise yourself. You know yourself how you would feel if somebody criticised your best friend. You'd be defensive, you'd stand up for them, you'd argue the toss with the critic. Be your own best friend from now on. Start to think if anybody was to say anything bad about you, including you. So if your self-talk in your head starts talking ill of yourself, be your own best friend and stand up for yourself. So there are a few more other things I wanted to talk to you about, and this is specific to your business. So think about what it means to bring new people into your business. So there's a simple equation that works and equals success in your business. And this equation is the amount of consultants you've got times their sales equals your success. So if you can't drive sales to massive amounts in your team, what you need to do is to recruit more and more people. Now that's actually the easy part, because what we know is that this company or this industry and this opportunity is not yet saturated. There are thousands and thousands of people in and around the UK and in fact in North America who are also looking for an earnings opportunity, something that's flexible and can work around their current obligations or commitments with their family or their work. So I want us to think about this opportunity that we're offering people, because all too often when somebody tells us that they're interested in joining the Body Shop at Home, we get really excited. So we're excited for ourselves because it means we're going to grow our team, but also we're excited for that person because we know what a great opportunity this is. So the first thing that we do when we find out that they're interested is we start to pebble dash them with pieces of information about becoming a Body Shop at Home consultant. We tell them the features, we tell them benefits about it. What have we got out of it? What have we been able to do? What free products do we get? All of these things that we love about the Body Shop at Home, we start to tell people as soon as we realise that they're interested. Well, to some people that might all sound great, but to a select amount of people, they're just going to hear noise and find it all quite overwhelming. So what I want you to think about is, if you have a lot coming at you at once, it's difficult to process all of that information, isn't it? And sometimes we can close down. So what I want you to think about doing is presenting everybody who you meet or everybody who you talk to about this earnings opportunity, presenting them with what I would call a bespoke or a tailor-made earnings opportunity. So what you're going to do is you're going to take all the features and benefits of being a Body Shop at Home consultant, take the bits out of it that just suit them and their lifestyle and their habits and their family. Just take those bits and give them that as an earnings opportunity. How are you going to do that? It's actually really easy. You just have to find out a little bit about their lifestyle and what they do and where they go. Now, if you've got somebody who's really interested, it's difficult to do a full fact find and start asking them lots and lots of questions. So what I've managed to come up with is one question alone, that kind of allows you to glean a lot of that information in one go. And this question is, where do you spend most of your time? So it sounds like a really awkward and random question, a difficult one to shoehorn in, but there is a way that you can do it, and I'm going to teach you that now. So what you have to do is, if somebody asks you or tells you they're interested or says they'd like to learn a little bit more about being with the Body Shop at Home, you say, yes, of course, I'm going to tell you all about it. But first of all, can I just ask you, where do you spend most of your time? Then when they answer that question, it's amazing how much information you get out of them. So they might then say to you, oh, most of my time, well, I'm probably just at home with the kids. Or it might be that she says, well, I work full time. So then when I come out of work, I had to pick the kids up from the childminder. Then I've got to go home, make the tea. And then we've got brownie, swimming club, ballet, gymnastics, kung fu, and all of these things that she starts to tell you are part of where she spends her time. Or she might just say to you, for example, I've got an 8-week-old baby, so I'm just on the sofa most of the time with the baby. Okay, so whatever it is that she tells you, you have to be prepared to really listen at this point, because you're going to listen out for clues that are going to form those 4 top features and benefits of becoming a Body Shop at Home consultant. So then when she tells you that stuff, you can then process that information and present him or her with this bespoke, tailor-made earnings opportunity that miraculously exactly fits his or her lifestyle, way of life, job, family commitments, etc. See? Genius, isn't it? So you're then, rather than overwhelming that person with features and benefits and information and things that you love about the Body Shop at Home, you're going to tell him or her the things that you know are going to appeal to them because of those few simple facts they've told you about their lifestyle. So that's it, it's bespoke. Now, doing that little mini fact find and presenting that bespoke and tailor-made earnings opportunity is a little bit of a waste of time if you don't close the sale and gain commitment from that person there and then on the spot. How do I do that bit, I hear you ask? So what you have to do is get them to agree to sign up there and then. Any moments of hesitation are going to cause a delay in a decision, which would then more often than not result in a no or a lot of objection handling. So what I'm going to ask you to do is ask this closing question, which goes like this. So have you got any questions for me, or shall we get to the really exciting bit and get you started? Okay, so you're going to ask her if she's got more questions or if they're ready to start now. So have you got any questions for me then, or should we get to the exciting part and get you started? If you switch it and say that the other way round, then what they're left with is, have you got any questions for me? So it's better to stick to the way round that I've shown you how to do. So they end up thinking the exciting part is getting started. So 9 times out of 10 they'll go, come on then, let's give it a go. But we all know that it doesn't always work that way. And sometimes they've got an objection, what we call an objection, or you might know of it as an excuse. Okay, so let me tell you a secret. An objection to me is just a request for more information. Because people sometimes say no to you because they haven't quite heard what you've said, or they haven't quite understood what you've said. So an objection is usually a request for more information. Remember that. So I'll come up with an objection. Let's say, for example, sorry, I banged my desk and something fell off my laptop. It's fine though. So if they gave you an objection for, say, for example, or I couldn't sell, I don't know how to sell, I'm rubbish at selling. So you then need to handle that objection or give them more information. Now, it's all too easy sometimes to make someone feel a bit silly when you're objection handling, because you could be really insensitive at this point and say, oh, don't be so silly, I bet you know loads of people. Well, for one thing there, you've told the person that they're silly. And then the other thing is that you've said to that you've doubted their fear, and you haven't made their fear count. So what you need to do is validate their fear and show empathy for them. So the way that you would do that is use a system or a method called feel, felt, found. And the way that you use this in a sentence is that you say, yeah, I know exactly how you feel, because when I first started, I felt exactly the same. But what I found was that, what did we say? Knowing people, or I don't know how to sell, yeah. But what I found was, so I know exactly how you feel because when I first started, I felt the same. However, what I found was that you don't need to sell at all with a Body Shop. You just hand the catalogues out to people or add them into your Facebook selling group, and the products just sell themselves. And before you know it, you've got £150 worth of orders. So feel, felt, found in this instance shows empathy, but it also shows them that they're not the only person who's felt like that, and that you felt like it as well, but you know the answers and you know how to handle it, and you're going to hold their hand and take them through it. So what you're actually doing there is you're validating their fear, allowing them to have that fear, but showing them that you have the empathy to understand that and lead them out of it. Try it, it really works. So when you've handled their objection, guess what you're going to do then? you're going to have to close again. So you ask exactly the same question. So have you got any more questions for me then, or should we now get to the exciting part and get you started? So you'll probably find then that people feel confident enough and trust you enough to then go ahead and sign up with you. But if they don't, you can practice over time objection handling and closing, objection handling and closing as many times as you want to until they say yes. But it takes a while to get to that place, so don't have too high an expectation on yourself when you first start out. So I think that that's a really effective way of recruiting people into your team, is when you get that lead, don't get so incredibly excited that you pebble dash them with information. Ask a little question to fact find out exactly what their lifestyle is like so that you can present to them a bespoke and a tailor-made earnings opportunity. That way they can't say no. So I also wanted to tell you about an interview that I was listening to on a podcast. It was Andrea Jung, who she was the CEO of Avon for about 15 years. So when she first joined Avon, it was sort of in the 2000 and something, really early, like about 2003, I think. Avon was absolutely flying high, really successful and doing well. And so she was riding the crest of that wave at the time and doing an amazing job. But then things started to get really difficult and the business was in decline. And she had to really struggle through that time. And I was reading about, I made a couple of notes actually, sorry for looking down at my notebook. She was saying that the business had kind of like morphed into something that it hadn't used to be, and it had really changed, and she was tasked with trying to find out to kind of like do a 180 and do something completely different with the business. So she came up with this theory, which I think is fascinating, that she would fire herself on a Friday and then rehire herself on a Monday morning. And what it meant was that she could come up with a whole new strategy and a whole new way of working. And it sometimes meant that she had to put her hand up and say, yep, I said that last week, but do you know what? We've decided now that this is the best way forward for the company. And it was difficult with trust issues and that with other people on the board and things. But it allowed her, by firing herself on a Friday, rehiring herself on a Monday, to completely rethink her strategy and start again with a completely clean sheet. And I want you to have a think about that with your Body Shop at Home business, how plausible it is for you to fire yourself, rehire yourself and start again with a whole new mindset. Think about William Shakespeare and what he did when he lost his job in the theatre. What did he do? He got his head down and started writing, didn't he? So now this is really interesting. Oh, and an interesting fact about Avon as well is that, you know, Venus and Serena Williams, the amazing tennis players, their entire education was funded by Avon. I think that's amazing, that their mother was an Avon lady and she sold Avon products in order to fund their education and indeed their tennis coaching. Super story. But the other thing that I was going to say to you about Andrea Jung is that she now, she works for, I think she is the CEO of Grameen America. Now this is a company, a non-profit organisation, because when she left Avon, she thought, well, in order to fulfil myself now, I really want to work with a non-profit organisation and do some good and put back. And so she works with this company who are who facilitate micro lending for entrepreneurial women. So I think that all of those years that she spent with Avon and empowering women and working on those strategies to make women feel empowered in business, she took this on to enable female entrepreneurs to feel empowered. She said she was working on this company that provided micro loans. And what's so amazing is that the trust she built in these women means that today, to this day, even in COVID-19, she has a 99% repayment rate. Fascinating interview anyway, and she's a great woman. And many, many years ago when I was working at Avon, I can remember meeting her once and I thought she was pretty incredible then, so I was really interested to hear her interview. The other thing that she said is that our brains are not designed to do anything that's uncomfortable. Our brains aren't designed to do uncomfortable things. So it's almost like they're set up to protect us. So if something comes our way and we're going to make a business decision on something, if we hesitate, spend too long procrastinating, thinking over an idea, this sends a message to our brain which goes into this protection mode. Therefore, it makes us stop and not do anything. So what you need to do is take out that micro hesitation. So next time you're thinking, perhaps you're inspired by somebody in your team or a regional manager who does something incredible and you think, I'd love to do that. Don't hesitate. Put the ideas in motion. Commit everything down on paper. That's what I always do when I want to start a new challenge, is I write notes on it and I write myself a plan as if I've decided I'm going to go ahead and do it. I do that a lot. And then I can almost start thinking it through and thinking the processes through and decide what it is that I want to do and make a plan. So rather than having that little micro moment of hesitation that is going to send the message to your brain to protect yourself, that hesitation moment, just get on with it. Just get on with it. Think about those things that I've taught you about how to offer somebody a bespoke and a tailor-made job or earnings opportunity. Think that through. Write down what I've taught you today. Write it down. Practice it in the mirror. Practice it with the teddy bears on your bed when you're going to bed at night. Think it all through. Now I'm going to finish by saying that a lot of people who I work with and train say to me, sorry for you, Pippa, you can do that because you've got this really kind of zany personality that allows you to talk to anybody. You know, I couldn't recruit like that. Well, what I want you to think about is that not everybody likes a personality like that. Not everybody likes me. Some people find me really in your face and overwhelming, but that's okay. Not everybody has to like everybody. And what other people think of me is none of my business anyway. So it's important that you are confident in who you are and don't try and be somebody else. So think of that person who's overwhelmed or intimidated by me. They would probably prefer to be talked to about this earnings opportunity by somebody who was more calm and laid back and relaxed and held something back. So if you are that person, think that you don't have to talk 100 miles an hour and be really zany and have loads and loads of words to say and make lots of silly faces. You don't need to be that person to recruit effectively with the Body Shop at home. You just need to know all the words that you're going to say and be confident in your technique that you're using with asking questions and presenting your bespoke earnings opportunity. So you just need to be confident in those things. You don't need to have any specific personality type. And the very last thing I'm going to talk to you about is personal fear. If you came to conference back in February in Telford, you will have seen all of the sales team and the head office team come out on stage and present various bits of conference. Every time I came out to do something, I stood behind that big black curtain and I had this moment of crippling fear, where my solar plexus was like a rock in my stomach, really hard. And I was standing there like, take a few deep breaths and thinking, I'm really nervous about doing this, but there's 3,500 people out there waiting for me to go out and read their name. I can't let anybody down. I need to do this. So I would feel the fear and go out there and do it anyway. So I'm going to end today by saying that if you don't do something every day that makes you feel that ball of lead in the pit of your stomach, then you're just not trying hard enough. Do something every day that makes you feel nervous or excited even, that just makes you feel that you're pushing yourself and stretching yourself, because that's how you're going to grow and develop. If you think about how a balloon grows, well, a balloon doesn't grow, but I'm thinking more about going out of shape. If you put something inside of it that rattles around, you've got to keep pushing the boundaries for something to grow. So for you personally to grow and develop yourself, you've got to push your boundaries all of the time. So every day, try a little something that in the past has made you feel that little bit anxious. Remember me behind the black curtain feeling really, and think about that, and that I was able to come out on stage and go, ta-da! As if I wasn't nervous. But believe you me, I was. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed listening to what I've had to say about personal development and developing your business. And I'll be fascinated to hear any feedback that you've got. And if you have got a success story to tell me about that you think I'd be interested to hear based on what we've talked about today, please do drop me a little inbox on Facebook and I'd love to hear your story. Good luck to you all, and thanks for joining me.